Welcome back to Get Started Investing, a podcast where we answer all of your money and investing questions. If you've just joined us for the first time, a massive welcome. We strongly recommend that you scroll up and start at episode 1 if you're looking for a series on the basics to get started investing. Otherwise, we have a cracking episode for you today. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you?
I'm very good, Bryce. Very excited for this episode. We are talking about superannuation. It is our final episode of our end of financial year health check. We've covered our goals, our portfolio construction, our strategy for the year ahead, what we're paying in fees to execute that strategy, and finally, last but certainly not least, we're talking about our superannuation.
So today, the key things that we want to check: have we consolidated our super? We're going to check on our chosen super fund and how it's performed. We're going to look at whether we have the correct investment options and what fees we're paying. Do we have the right insurance cover, and how much we've actually contributed to our superannuation over the last financial year? Plenty of big topics to cover there. So let's do it.
The good news is some of those checklist points are simple to execute, but can be super powerful. We will get to that though. Before we do, we want to say a massive thank you to Superhero for sponsoring this series and making it possible. All right, so Bryce, you listed 6 things that we're going to cover off in today's superannuation health checklist. The good news is some of them are super simple, none more simple than the first one. Answering the question, have I consolidated my super? For people unfamiliar, especially when you're early in your career, you'll often open multiple superannuation accounts just because you'll take the employer's default and you won't really check. And it's created this situation where there's, I think, literally millions of Australians that have multiple superannuation accounts. And that means you're paying multiple sets of fees. And what you want to do is consolidate it all into one, so you're only paying one set of fees and all your money can grow and compound together. The good news is it is super simple to check. All you need to do is log into MyGov and make sure your ATO account is linked. So select super and then select fund details. There, it'll show how many super funds are open in your name. What you want to see is one. If you see more than one, you can follow the prompts there to consolidate them and transfer them into just one.
Yeah. Good news, Ren. I only have one.
Nice.
Yes.
Same.
So we're tick on that box, but if you haven't done it, do it. Super easy. There are also some very clear instructions on the ATO website.
Yeah. So number 1, make sure you've just got one super fund. Make sure you're not paying 2 sets of fees. And if you are, consolidate them.
Yeah.
Question 2, check in on your super fund. Let's make sure that your fund, let's see how your fund is performing, and importantly, how it's performing long-term, 5, 7, 10 years. And then how does that compare to other funds? So Bryce, how's your super fund going?
So my super fund, I'm actually taking control of most of the investments within my super fund. So that means I'm directly managing a large chunk of it. The way it's split, there a compulsory portion of my payments go into a high growth managed fund that I can't control. And then I'm allowed to control the remaining amount through a list of ETFs and direct investments. My portfolio this year is up 41%, which is a mix of capital growth and contributions. The numbers were too difficult, so I threw it into ChatGPT to separate, to find out what the growth was just from the investments, not from the money that I'd contributed. And so my direct investments have returned 15% this year.
Nice.
Yeah, the high growth managed fund is 8.5%. I'm outperforming the high growth. Where that compares, a lot of the funds haven't actually reported for this financial year yet, obviously, because we're not quite at the end of the financial year. But I would say you'd be wanting to look at definitely average market return of 10 to 11% or above. That's just my preference. It'll be interesting to see when all of the super funds report over the next couple of months. So yeah, I don't know really where that stands, but I'm happy with total growth of 41%.
Does that include your contributions?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Bryce. Well, I've got good news for you. If your benchmark is above, what did you say, 10% a year?
That's just don't take that as gospel. Like, I'm very conscious of the compliance around this stuff. So
to be honest, I would be surprised if a lot of super funds were doing that, just because like their asset mix,
yeah,
like you're probably looking at 7 or 8% is probably where.
yeah, mine's geared for growth.
Yeah. Well, so's mine, because I return 16% X any new contributions.
Yeah.
So capital growth, 16%.
Nice.
Pretty happy with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's below the S&P 500, so
It is,
we
yeah.
could probably both improve.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just the way that the fund works is you're actually, and I get it, they don't want Cowboys going in there and just putting everything on a specky.
Yeah.
So you're limited in how much you can put in certain investments.
Yeah.
So it's not like I can replicate exactly what I'm doing in my personal portfolio.
Yeah.
But look, I'm really happy with that. I can't tell you the last 7 to 10 years because I've only been in this setup for the last 3 or so.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens in down markets and whether or not my portfolio is as defensive as some of the super funds that are set up. I would say it's probably not, because I'm definitely geared for growth. But I've contributed. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Now, if you want to compare your super fund's performance, a really great resource is the ATO's Your Super website. So if your super fund is one of the My Super funds, you can look up your fund on the ATO website and compare it to other similar funds. Or if your fund isn't on the ATO website, you can do what we've just done. You can look at the performance and then go on the Your Super website and compare it. So yeah, I think it's good to see how your fund compares. The important thing is you got to do an apples to apples comparison. So if you're in a growth fund, make sure you're comparing it to other growth funds. If you're in a conservative fund, make sure you're comparing it to other conservative funds.
Yeah.
So that's number 2. Check in on your fund. How's it going? Question number 3. Am I in the correct investment option? Now, even for a setup like yours, Bryce, where you take control of the majority of your super, you are still choosing for that remainder, high growth, balanced, conservative.
Mm-hmm.
They're generally the buzzwords that people will use. So for your remainder, what are you in?
So I'm in high growth. And I think if we're answering the question, is that correct? You need to answer the question, where am I in my super journey? And how long is it going to be until I get access to this money?
I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
What's my time horizon here? Yeah.
So I'm still decades away from being able to access my superannuation. So I want to be optimizing my super for capital growth.
Yeah.
I don't need to be putting a tilt towards defensive so that I'm protecting capital at this stage, because the likelihood that I can make back the capital that I lose if the market crashes in the next 5 years is a lot higher than if I was in my late 50s and the market crashes. I'm not in a position to earn back that money in over 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
So I'm very much looking for high growth, and my portfolio definitely aligns with that. So I'm comfortable with my investment options being aligned with my goals.
Yeah. I'm the same. I'm also in high growth, so I check that. Happy with where I'm at. All the similar reasons for you. The other thing just to keep in mind, just for the sake of completeness, you want to, when you're thinking about what the investment option is right for you, time horizon is most important. Also think about your risk tolerance. I would argue that risk is actually about the risk of permanently losing capital. But when we talk about risk here, it's about seeing your balance fluctuate massively. And if you're someone who sees your portfolio fall 30, 40% and will panic and make a not sensible decision, then you should be mindful of that and perhaps not be in the highest growth option, because they've also the highest risk. So that's just the other thing to keep in mind. All 3 points so far, pretty straightforward to do. Have I consolidated my super? How has it gone this year and also over a bit of a longer term horizon? And then am I in the correct investment option?
Yeah, and I think also just to note the correct investment option, it's worth actually looking at what those options are invested in. So I actually went in and had a look at the high growth, just to be like, they say high growth, I don't want it 20% defensive assets. That to me is not. Good news is this high growth option, which 33% of my super is invested in, I manage the remaining 67. 5% is defensive, 95% is growth assets.
Okay.
So that is very much in line with high growth.
Yeah.
Those growth assets are broken down into Australian, international shares, and also global property. And they make it very clear that this is for a 10 plus year time horizon
Yep.
with high risk level.
Nice.
So yeah, all illustrates everything that you just spoke about.
Nice one. Well, we're 3 questions down. We've got 3 to go. We're going to cover off what fees am I paying? Do I have the right insurance? And how much did I contribute in the past financial year? But before then, we're going to take a quick break and say a massive thank you to Superhero. Welcome back to Get Started Investing. We are in the 4th of 4 episodes of our end of financial year health check. We've covered off your goals, your portfolio construction, your investing strategy for the year ahead, what fees you're paying. And now we're in the final part of our health check, which is our superannuation, the oft forgotten and neglected part of our investing portfolios. But for most of us, it's the biggest part of our investing portfolios, or it will be the biggest part of our investing portfolios over time. And it's going to be the foundation of a lot of our retirements. So it's important we're thinking about it, and it's important we're doing this checklist to make sure we are optimizing it. Bryce, we've got 3 questions to go. What fees am I paying? Do I have the right insurance? And how much did I contribute? Let's start with fees. What fees are you paying?
So fees are broken up in a number of different ways in my superannuation. So I've got an administration fee, I've got an asset-based admin fee, and I've got investment fees and costs. 3 fees to consider. The way that generally Super breaks it up, and all of the comparisons are done on a $50,000 portfolio. And this is something I didn't know, but it's actually for every 50,000 this fee kicks in. So I have an admin fee of $52 for every $50,000. And so the next 50,000, it's another 52, another 52, another 52.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so $52 admin fee. I've got an asset-based admin fee of 0.35% of my total assets under management, and an investment fee or costs of 0.31%. So just to make that very clear, if your balance is 50,000 at the beginning of the year, I'll be charged total fees of $397 for my super product. 15 of this total amount will not be charged to me, but is required to be disclosed, and that's also important. So a total of $382 for a $50,000 portfolio. This, for comparison, is super competitive.
So to be clear, that's 0.76%.
Yeah, if you want to put it in percentage figures, yeah.
Well, that's right.
So if you go onto the ATO website that the My Super and compare, it lists it all in dollar figures.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I saw, this is very, very competitive. So really, from what I get out of my super, the ability to manage it myself, I'm happy with that fee breakdown.
Yeah.
It's not the cheapest, but it's up there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's competitive.
Yeah. So you can do that work as well. The good news is I have the same super setup as you, so we don't need to go through my fees as well. I'll just say above.
Yeah. Last financial year, I paid $582 in fees.
Why? But you said 380. Oh, because you've got more than 50.
I've got more than 50,
Must be
yeah.
nice.
And also, one thing I didn't know, there's a contribution tax, and this is the amount of money the ATO deducts from super contribution to cover taxes.
Wait, you didn't?
I didn't know that.
It's 15% tax.
Yeah, that's the 15%.
Yeah.
2,287 is what I paid.
It'd be, yeah. So super isn't a tax-free environment. It's a tax-reduced
Yes.
environment.
Sorry. You're right. So that 15%, 2,287.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have a look at your fees. As Bryce said, make sure you're looking at all the different fees, however they come: administration, transaction, management. Some will be dollar figures, some will be percentages. So you can calculate it on a $50,000 sample, and then you can do an apples to apples comparison on the Your Super website with some of the other funds out there. So you can sort of say, what am I paying and what are the equivalents out there? As we said earlier in our fees episode, all things being equal, you should be trying to pay the lowest fees possible. So if you are paying higher fees, make sure you can justify that with the reason that all things are not equal, that you're getting better service, better outcomes, better investment performance, whatever it is. So yeah, have a look at that. And if you think you are overpaying, it's never going to be a better time to change than now.
Early. Yeah. Nice. All right. So question number 5, do I have the right insurance cover? Now, if you're unaware, superannuation generally covers off your life insurances,
So there's 3.
income, TPD, and life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And TPD is total and permanent disability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you generally have your insurance premiums come out of your superannuation to cover those 3 life insurances.
Yes.
So the first thing is you need to review what you're paying and whether or not you want to be paying them.
Yep.
And so you can, in most instances, turn on and off the insurance covers. Secondly, if it's important to you, you then need to actually figure out if the cover that you're getting is adequate. You're not, the default superannuation position is enough for you. And so you can do a deep dive on that.
Yeah, well, I know that's something that you've just done, and it's something that I feel like I might need to do, because in answering the first question, that's easy to answer. So I had a look at my super. I've got a $250,000 life insurance policy and a $250,000 total and permanent disability insurance policy, and my super fund, at least at this time, doesn't offer income protection.
Okay.
And so as I was doing this checklist before this episode and I was putting that in, I then just had this thought of like, I have no idea if that's enough.
Yeah.
And like the good news is I don't have any dependents, so life insurance not super important.
Yeah.
But total and permanent disability, like if I could never work again, never earn money again, and I needed like medical care and, you know, to retrofit my house to get mobility aids in, whatever it is, 250 grand, probably not enough. Well, I mean, like at first blush, my remaining mortgage is more than 250 grand. So I was like, okay, probably underinsured.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, what do you do about it? And I would be stuck if it weren't for some content we'd done earlier this year around insurance with an advisor who I know you've actually taken the next step with. So talk to me about your insurance setup.
So I don't have any insurances through my superannuation. I think I ticked the box when I signed up not to have insurance included for some reason. Maybe I thought I would do it separately. Never got around to do it separately. And now I've gone to an insurance advisor, because for most super funds, not all, but for some, you can get insurance outside of super. It's actually through another super fund that you get it. And then your current super fund pays for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not worry too much about the technicals
there, yeah.
There's,
but I've gone.
If you want the technicals and you want to speak to this advisor that Bryce is speaking to, there's a link in our show notes so we can put you in
There'll
touch.
also be an episode on Equity Mates where I'm doing a deep dive one-on-one with this advisor.
Yeah, I've been booted out of the room
to
for
do
this.
it, yes. Long story short, Ren, you can go to your super fund and get them to do an underwriting process where they actually get you to fill in a big form to understand your personal circumstances.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yep.
So that they really understand what is your income, what are your dependencies, so they really can then say this is what we think you should be covered for, or you can go externally, which I'm doing. It was very clear the numbers that spat out. Yeah, absolutely underinsured. I've been suggested that need cover at $3 million. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. The other real challenge.
Hold on. That puts my $250,000 in contrast.
And the other real challenge for you and I is because we're self-employed.
No, we're not self-employed. We're employed by Equity Mates Media.
It doesn't count. Oh. Yeah, they look at financial performance. And so what they're willing to cover me from an income point of view is inadequate.
Okay.
Because anyway, so that's a whole other story. But the point here is, as we've heard time and time again through the professionals, is that don't just accept your default superposition if it's important to you. For a lot of people, having it is better than nothing. But if you really do want to make sure that it's for your specific circumstances, you have the options to seek advice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is certainly something that I need to look into. So that's going to be a goal for this financial year. And I guess that's why we're doing this checklist. So we can see if there's any areas that need some attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have the right insurance? Unfortunately, I cannot give that a tick for myself. But
I'm on track.
when we do this a year from now,
Watch this space.
$7 million insurance.
Nice.
All right. The final question for our superannuation checklist. How much did I contribute? That's the first part of the question. The second part is more important, which is what's my plan for contributions for the year ahead?
Yeah.
And
So for me, I made no additional contributions. My contributions was just what Equity Mates paid from a compulsory point of view. What do I intend to do over the coming year? I don't intend to change that unless I get some crazy windfall that I can maximize the concessional contributions. But I don't plan to put any additional in. I may speak to an advisor over the next 12 months and they may give alternative advice to that. But personally, for now, I'm not going to be doing that.
Yeah. I am the same. I just did my default contributions, which I was comfortable with. Doing superannuation content, I always think it would be sensible to put more into superannuation as concessional contributions while I'm young. While I think I've said earlier in this series, I'm kind of in this sweet spot of double income, no kids, Alice and I. But realistically, when you were just talking about getting a windfall, and I was sort of thinking, what would I do if I had a windfall? I would be putting it in my offset account before I contributed to super. And people will argue, and
I'm talking the 150 million the 150 million Oz Lotto windfall.
Okay, yeah. Well, then you would max out your superannuation concessional cap from here and every year. Looking like the financially rational thing to do is to contribute more to super. I understand that, but it's so far away that,
That what?
I just can hear financial advisors tearing their hair out as
I mean, it's a personal thing.
It is.
That's the point in going to get personal advice. Everyone has different goals, and at the end of the day, your goals is to have access to some capital probably prior to getting access to superannuation.
Definitely.
Plenty to think about when it comes to super. And I think, as you said at the top, Ren, everyone has it. It's becoming a more and more meaningful asset the older and older we get. So paying attention to it now and setting up these foundations is super important.
Yeah. Pun intended.
Pun intended.
So that does bring us to the end of our 4-part end of financial year health checklist. We hope it's been instructive, that you can take the checklist away and apply it to your own financial situation. Remember, it's not about comparison. It's about competing with yourself, making sure that your financial house is in order, that the infrastructure, the foundations are there, and that if there are opportunities to do things better, that you can jump on them in the year ahead. But Bryce, that does bring us to the end until we do it all again next financial year.
Yeah.
And we want to say a massive thank you to Superhero for making this series possible and helping us keep all of our content free.